Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to an unscripted, rambly video of me discussing all the 2024 albums I bought physically in, 2024. So not albums from previous years that I bought, that'd be way too much, because as you can see, there's a lot to get through. Why am I doing this? Well, because the top 10 albums of 2024 video that I work on is giving me a headache. I just can't settle on a definitive list, and I figured maybe if I just talk about all the CDs I got, it will make things a little bit easier, including the ones that I wouldn't get to talk about otherwise because they don't qualify for Album of the Year, like re-releases and live albums, etc., etc. So, unscripted, let's try and get through this quickly enough. I hope this goes well, because I am passionate about talking about music, even though I don't really know how to talk about the intricacies of it. It's just, I like this, I don't like that. So, kicking things off in alphabetical order with Sunday Sadness by Amy Shark. Amy Shark cancelled her Wellington show. In fact, I think she cancelled the whole New Zealand tour, if you could even call it a tour. But I won't hold that against her. How is this album? It's, it's a pop album, and I don't know, I don't have a love-hate relationship with Amy Shark, because I like a couple of her singles, but every time I get one of her albums, it just kind of, like, fades into the background sort of thing. So I wouldn't say I'm a die-hard fan, and there's nothing on this that stands out particularly to me. The pre-release track, what was it called? Can I Shower at Your Place? I tried to find like a clean version of it because it's a bit cringe otherwise, but I couldn't. And so this is fine to listen to, but it is just like generic background pop music. Moving on to Alien Ant Farm, Mantras, or well, it's got an ant in the middle of it, so that makes sense. But also they printed the sideways sleeve upside down, so -1 point. Yeah, this is one that I didn't get into that much this year, but I enjoy listening to because it's, it's like, if Amy Shark's generic pop, this is generic pop rock, I guess. It's kind of cool to have the band back together after so long. But yeah, it's not one that has standout tracks, but I do enjoy listening to it. Next up, top 10 album of the year contender, Alkaline Trio, Blood, Hair and Eyeballs. This was like the first album that came out in the whole year that I got, if I remember. It was either this or Green Day. And yeah, this was my first Alkaline Trio album. I've since gone back and listened to a lot more of their stuff, because, as you might know, I like that era of Blink-182 with Matt Skiba, and yeah, I enjoy this quite a lot. Meet Me, absolute favourite on this album. So yeah, I'm starting to get into Alkaline Trio, and I really like this album. Obviously, greatest hits doesn't count towards top 10 albums of the year, but, I mean, come on, Avril Lavigne. There's a lot of cool songs on here, some that I haven't listened to, because I've only ever heard, I think, her last two, and then her first two albums, so that middle era, didn't hear much of. And, had to download a lot of clean versions, because, wow, there's a lot of cringe on there. And then next up is Bastille Presents and Passand. This is technically not a Bastille album, because it's just Dan. Like, I don't think Woody and the rest of the gang are on here, but it's just a nice, kind of quiet album. It's pretty much Dan and a bunch of collaborators. There's a couple of standout tracks on there, but I mean, Bastille usually release, like, top albums of the year. This one not so much, because again, it's not technically a Bastille album, and it's a bit quiet, but still cool. Billy Idol, Rebel Yell, is this like 40th anniversary edition? Yeah, this was one of the ones where I should have probably listened to it a bit before I bought it, because I don't have many strong feelings about them, although it is one of those albums where I listen to the tracks and I'm like, oh, okay, I do know these. Anyway, moving on. Billie Eilish, is this Hit Me Hard and Soft? Is that what it's called? Yes, this came with a very lame poster. So this is one of those albums where it's like, I really wanted to get into it more, because I've never really been that into Billie Eilish, although a couple of her songs that like aren't on albums, like James Bond soundtrack or Barbie soundtrack, I do end up liking. And it was just one that I never got around to listening to it all that much, but from what I did hear, I enjoyed. And then we've got the first of these bootleg things, Blur, Good Old Days, live in the 90s. I have about 3 of these. I can't remember the company that do them, but they're not official discography things. They're just like I said, like bootlegs. So I would not recommend. What I would recommend instead is Blur live at Wembley Stadium. I missed out seeing this in the cinema I worked at. Just had a bad day and wasn't able to attend it, but this is two discs covering that iconic event. I don't think it's got a Blu-ray or a DVD. I don't quite remember. No, it's not. It's just the CD. So hopefully one day they'll add it to streaming or something. Next up, Bon Jovi, Forever. For some reason I kept thinking this album was called Legendary, but no, it's just the pre-release song Legendary. This is another one where, like, I really like Bon Jovi. I have the entire variety of, like, Bon Jovi's discography. But this is similar to 2020, just an okay album. you know, you chuck it on in the background. It's not like one of my favourites, like Slippery When Wet. And, of course, This House Is Not For Sale is like peak modern Bon Jovi. But it does have one of Bon Jovi's best songs ever, which is Living Proof. So, that's pretty neat. Next up, Brat. It's Brat. I bought this to try and force myself to like it. I don't dislike it. I don't love it. I've listened to both the original and their remix, and it's fine. There's one song I really like on it. Moving on before I anger people. Coldplay's Moon Music, the first of the albums this year where they decide to release a deluxe version days after the main release. This is one where I thought I enjoyed listening to it all the way through, and I do, but the songs feels like I'm falling in love, and is it All My Love? I think so. And I'm a Mountain are really good, but We Pray has got to be like close to my song of the year. That is such a catchy song, so that kind of overshadows the entire album for me. Plus, I didn't get to see them live. The Cure, Paris. This is a live album. It's The Cure live. You know what to expect. Creed, Human Clay. I think I cancelled my order of this, but it came in anyway, so I'm like, oh well. Because I don't own any Creed albums. This was like my gateway, I suppose, because it's like a 10th or 20th anniversary version. Deluxe edition. Well, there's the 2 songs that everybody knows, and those are the only ones that stood out to me. The Cure. Songs from a Lost World, is it? Yes, Songs of a Lost World. This album, I'll save my main thoughts for the top 10 albums of the year video, but, like, it's really great. Like, obviously their best album in many years. But to me, it all sounds the same. And I think that's probably intentional. Like, thematically and musically, it sounds like one long musical experience. So it's great to listen to as a long musical experience, but picking just one song to listen to is not happening. Deadpool and Wolverine soundtrack. It's got a Stray Kids song on there, which is pretty cool. Well, it's a movie soundtrack, so it's got some cool hits. It's got some songs you'll never listen to otherwise. Foster the People. This is like the first of the albums, at least alphabetically speaking, that I didn't listen to much beforehand, but I trusted that it would be cool. And yeah, this was a surprise to me. It's my first Foster the People album since the original one. And it's really good in quality. It's very surprising. And a good friend of mine said that, yeah, Foster the People are a really underrated band. You know, everyone knows Pumped Up Kicks, but they kept making good music otherwise. So that one's like a really strong contender. Def Leppard, they always got to release something, don't they? Live at the Lead Mill, it's a live Def Leppard. Dragon Force, Warp Speed Warriors. This is the first of the Dragon Force albums in many years where I couldn't get the deluxe edition for some reason. It was like they always do Japan exclusives. But this year, the Japan exclusive was the deluxe edition, so it was nearly impossible to get those bonus tracks. Regardless, this is one of the better ones. I didn't really care for Warp Speed Warriors, or I think it was Quest to Infinity, but this one's very cool, very catchy. A couple of, like, quirky songs on there. Dua Lipa, I don't even know the name of the album. Radical Optimism, yeah. I guess I'm fully into embracing pop music now. I'm no longer on my high horse. I've gotten off there, and I'm like, yep. If it's good pop music, which this is, I really like it. I love it. End of an era. Great banger. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth soundtrack. Yep, not going to talk about that. It hurts. Fleetwood Mac, Mirage Tour Live 82. So this one is a follow-up to the Rumours Live that they released last year, and it's got a couple more of the songs from the self-titled, and obviously Mirage, but aside from that, it's more live. Green Day, Saviors. This was the first CD I bought of the year, because it came out in January, and unlike Father of All, which I apparently am one of the only people that love that album, yeah, nothing on here stood out to me. There is a song that's very recently started getting stuck in my head. I don't know if it's Look Mark Got No Brains or Bobby Socks, but yeah, just a skippable album for me. And talking about skippable albums, Imagine Dragons. They are still on their streak of releasing one song full of pop rock bangers that I enjoy, and then one album full of pop rock bangers that I enjoy, and then following it up with a really boring experimental album. Like, I really like Evolve, and Night Visions, and Mercury Act 1, and then in between you've got, like, Smoke and Gold, or something, Smoke and Mirrors, and Origins, and now Loom, which is only 9 tracks, and they've released, as they do, like a 50 bajillion remixes of certain songs you don't really care about. It's just incredibly forgettable. James Blunt. My brother liked James Blunt, and this album has, like, their most popular songs on it. This is another one of those like 20th anniversary versions that I picked up. And yeah, I like the singles, but everything else kind of just fades away. Similar to Foster the People, we got Kasabian. It's my first Kasabian album for a while, because obviously, you know, the lead singer got fired for being a, well, bad person. And this is one of those ones where I didn't listen to much first, and then when I actually play it, I really enjoy it. So this one and Foster the People are like the two albums where I'm like, there's no song that I can point to particularly that's like, yeah, this is my favourite, but I do love listening to it from start to finish. Unlike poor Katy Perry. What's this one called? 143, which I think is supposed to be I Love You if you type on a text phone. Anyway, this is one of those ones where I really wanted to enjoy it because I kind of like some of the songs off Smile, her previous album. And obviously there's so many videos like, she's speedrunning the end of her career and blah, 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 blah. But I was willing to give it a chance because, you know, even if it was just generic pop trash, that was enjoyable to listen to, I would like it. But, yeah, it's not. Lyrically, it's mediocre. But musically, it's just bad. So, yeah, sorry, Katy Perry. Did not enjoy that one. Can We Please Have Fun? This one, sort of like Foster the People and Kasabian, is one where there's no song that stands out particular, but I do enjoy listening to it from start to finish. And this is another one of the albums that, you know, kind of getting me back into a band, because I haven't listened to them for many years. So that's a cool one to listen to all the way through, but no standout tracks. Libertines. This one is so close to being in my top 10, sort of like Arctic Monkeys. There are songs on here that are stand out, like I love Run, Run, Run. Merry Old England. I have actually so many of these songs I do genuinely like. I don't know why it's not in my top 10, actually. Spoiler alert. This is the alternate artwork, by the way. But no, this is very cool. This is awesome return to form for Libertines. Paper Cuts by Linkin Park. I remember the first Linkin Park one album I got was their Hybrid Theory 20th Anniversary Deluxe version back when I was doing my 2020 album haul series. That was kind of like my first ever, like, all right, I'm actually buying a Linkin Park album. This is actually the first time I've gotten into Linkin Park. Like, my whole youth, there were, like, the two Transformers songs, and then I think it was What I've Done. No, that was from, what is it? I can't remember. You know the ones, the popular ones. Where I Belong, is it? Whatever. Numb, New Divide, What I've Done, and Waiting for the End. In the end. I got there eventually. I'm rambling, as you can tell, but no, this is like the greatest hits one. And although I reckon it should have included New Divide, is New Divide on here? No, because it was a Transformers exclusive. So New Divide and I think Heavy would have been cool on here, but they included Lost, which is awesome, the Numb Encore version, whatever. But basically, this is what got me into Linkin Park this year, which is a perfect segue into their actual return from Zero. I love this album. Easily in my top 5. I think Ali is a phenomenal vocalist. I think people are a bit stupid when it comes to not fully understanding everything that... But basically, I remember it was announced she was the new singer. They put out the song, Emptiness Machine, and then the next day she put something on Instagram and was like, hey, once upon a time I defended somebody who turned out to be a dirtbag, and I've since, you know, disowned them, sort of thing. But that doesn't matter to some people, apparently. Next up, Loss of Life by MGMT. It took me a while to get into Little Dark Age, because aside from the title track, there was nothing really that stuck with me, but this year, the theme of Loss of Life is very potent, and I love the opening and closing tracks, Dancing in Babylon, Bubblegum Dog. There's so many songs in here that I like, and yeah, it was like the surprise album, like, oh wow, here's this band I don't normally listen to, and their album's very relatable. One Republic! I bought this because I saw them live last year, and if you watched my Road to One Republic video, you know that I'm not a diehard fan. I like some of their early works, but, you know, they came to my city, so I was like, might as well go see. And yeah, this is a phenomenal 18-track album. For a while, this was on my top 10, because it was, you know, generic pop rock sort of thing, but it was enjoyable, and there are several standout tracks, but a couple of them are old? Maybe not old, but they were released early 2023, you know, like Mirage, and the song from... the Tom Cruise Top Gun movie. But no, this was definitely an honourable mention, because it's just kind of enjoyable, fun pop trash to put on, pop rock to put in the background. F1000 by Post Malone. He did a country album, almost exclusively guest artists, and much like Coldplay, put out a deluxe version called F1 Trillion, I think it was, which I think some of the songs on those I enjoy a little bit more, but yeah. Post Malone, I think he can cross genres and do, like, rock really well. Country, not a fan. Manic Street Preachers Lifeblood 30th Anniversary Edition. This has 3 discs and is a must-have for any Manic Street Preachers fan, of which I am not. Why did I get it then? Well, let's just say I had access to exclusive discounts for all of these throughout the year, which is why I've got some of them. It's a really cool booklet, but not some of my preferred Manic Street Preachers. Like, I haven't listened to all of their albums because they've got heaps. And I absolutely love Decline in Full, which they released this year. It's a single, and I can't wait for the album. But listening to this one for the first time was just a bit too alternative, a bit too sleepy, you know? Rosie, or Rosé. Well, I think the artist is Rosé and the album is Rosie. Did not know this was a member of the Blackpink K-pop group. I just heard the APT featuring Bruno Mars and freaking loved that song. It was quite annoying to start with, and then it just grew on me, and so I was like, I gotta get the album. This is like the last album of the year to release. Well, apparently Stray Kids have got one. But anyway, it's a bit quiet. Like, it's a lot of slow jams, aside from that one song with Bruno Mars, but I do genuinely like her voice. It's very cool. Sean, by Shawn Mendes. How many self-titled albums are you gonna have, Sean? This is another one where, like, if you like Shawn Mendes' voice, you'll like this. Not a lot of upbeat stuff on there, but it's, you know, it's kind of nice, chill vibe album to put on in the background. Sia! Oh, controversial, Sia. Are people still, like anti-Sia, I guess? Probably. Anyway, Reasonable Woman. This was one, I don't think it was delayed, but it felt like it took forever to come out. This was another one that was, like, on my top 10, because it's, like, her first album since probably, like, the Cheap Thrills era. That's actually, like, an album, not a movie soundtrack or a B-sides mix or a Christmas album, which isn't bad, but still. And yeah, there's a lot of songs on here that stand out to me, like Little Wing, Give Me Love, Dance Alone, obviously. There's some really cool songs that do stand out, as I said. But I think ultimately, this came out around the same time as Dua Lipa, and just, I enjoyed Dua Lipa's so much more. But this is one of her better modern albums. Next up, Snow Patrol, Forest is the Path. We all know Snow Patrol's one popular song. Yeah, this has a lot more swearing on it than I expected. And it's good. I quite like the first few tracks, and then it kind of just devolves into more of the same. But it's one that, you know, will probably grow on me as time goes by. Next up, Travis, The Man Who. This is like another re-release. It's got Why Does It Always Rain on Me? Everybody likes that one. But their release that they did make this year, LA Times, with this beautiful hardcover 2-disc deluxe version with all the bonus tracks. Now, it's either Raise the Bar. No, because that's the one with Brandon Flowers on it. I think it might be Live It All Again. There's one song that's incredibly annoying. Like, he puts on a silly voice. And, yeah, so this was like my introduction to Travis. Thanks, Brandon Flowers. But no, it's alright, but it came out so early in the year and I've barely listened to it since. Clancy by 21 Pilots. Obviously, album of the year contender. The lore is all there, obviously. I'm so glad I managed to get this Dima book, this Clancy notebook from Canada. But in the meantime, I settled for the deluxe version. Oh, well, it's just the case. That's the same bunch of tracks. Yeah, this is just, I mean, I'll talk about it more on my top 10 albums of the year video, but it's just another awesome song. Every track, like, sounds different, which is, you know, nice. It's just, I love it. Phenomenal. Musically, everything else, great. Ooh, Only Above Us. Vampire Weekend. Yeah, I really liked Gen X Cops and Capricorn, like the 2 pre-release tracks, and there's another one on there. But it's like, for me, Vampire Weekend have always been like annoyingly enjoyable pop, or like indie pop sort of thing, because they use like these deliberately annoying instruments, but they sound so catchy. And this was on my top 10 for a while until I realized that none of the other tracks have stood out in my mind as the year has gone on, unlike MGMT. So I'm like, well, honourable mentions it goes. Wallows. This was the biggest regret of the year. I hadn't listened to any of them. I kind of like a couple of their old songs, and they were coming to my city, so I thought, well, if I'm going to get into them, now's the time. Bought this album. I listened to it at least 3 times, and each time I've fallen asleep. Boring, boring, boring. Zayn. Oh, buddy, Zayn. Similar to Imagine Dragons, goes like back and forth. Like, I'll do like this kind of indie alternative trap hop album and then a generic pop album. So much like Icarus Falls, this is a generic pop album. And yeah, it's nice. I like it. There's a couple of standout songs. But he did the whole thing where he released a deluxe edition days after the main album, which I can't get physically, so that's a shame. And then over here we've got Kaylee Bell's album. Just nice country album, good songs. And Mothburn EPs, these are great. More artists need to release CDs.